My fiancée and her father forced me to buy our dream house under her name, so I refused and made her true colors shatter for everyone to see. So I, 34 male, just nuked my entire 2-year relationship and cancelled a wedding that was 3 months away. But before you jump to any conclusions, no, I didn't cheat, she didn't cheat, nobody died, and I'm not having a midlife crisis. What happened was so much more insane that my friends literally didn't believe me until I showed them actual proof. It all started with a freaking house, or more specifically, my now ex-fiancée Amber, 31 female, trying to scam me out of one. Let me back up. I met Amber at this networking event downtown 2 years ago. I was honestly just there to raid the free appetizer table. Those little bacon-wrapped dates are my weakness, when this drop-dead gorgeous woman in a power suit starts chatting me up about some art exhibit. She was this pharmaceutical sales rep with the kind of magnetic personality that got her whatever she wanted. Seriously, the woman had superpowers. Waiters would forget to charge her for desserts, bouncers would unhook velvet ropes when they saw her coming, and store managers would magically discover special discounts that weren't advertised when she flashed that $1 million smile. I thought we were solid. We had the same taste in movies, both huge Marvel nerds, liked hiking on weekends when she wasn't posting pics for her Instagram, and could talk for hours about random stuff. We'd planned all the usual stuff couples do: marriage, kids, finding a sweet pad in a nice neighborhood, the whole package deal. Not going to lie, I always liked spoiling Amber with nice things. Like, I'm not one of those dudes who thinks women should pay for everything themselves, you know? I'd surprise her with concert tickets, got her this Gucci bag for her birthday one time, and we'd take weekend trips to cool spots around the state. I'm not crazy rich or anything, but I make good money as a software developer at this fintech startup, and I don't mind spending on people I care about. But here's the thing, I always did it on my terms, when I wanted to, not because I was being told to. That's the difference right there. Like, one time early in our relationship, she hinted she wanted these expensive shoes for Christmas, and I got them for her because I wanted to see her happy, not because she demanded it. There's a huge difference. We finally started looking at houses last year, and at first, it was actually pretty fun. We'd spend weekends driving to open houses, debating if having a massive kitchen was better than a killer game room, duh, and talking about hosting epic parties for our friends. We'd spend hours on Zillow just scrolling through listings and sending each other the good ones. But after like a month of house hunting, things started getting weird. It started small, you know. Amber began pointing at these insane mansions that cost double what we agreed we could afford. When I reminded her about our budget, she'd just say, "We'll make it work." That's what your coding bonus is for, right? Like she already had my bonus spent in her head before I even got it. She got obsessed with houses that had all this extra fancy stuff: infinity pools, home theaters, and wine cellars. She doesn't even drink wine, she just liked how it looked on Instagram. The mortgage payments would have been more than most people's entire salary. But whenever I mentioned that, she just waved her hand like it was nothing. "You worry too much, babe. Money comes and goes." Easy for her to say when my money was the one going. At first, I thought it was just normal house shopping excitement, but I started noticing this pattern. Every time we saw a house within our actual budget, she'd find something wrong with it. The kitchen was too small even though it was bigger than our apartment, or the master bathroom needs a full remodel because it didn't have one of those fancy rainfall showers, or the backyard wasn't big enough for entertaining. Like we're hosting the freaking Oscars after party or something. But the houses that were way beyond our budget? Those were always perfect and exactly what we needed and worth stretching for. I started getting this uneasy feeling in my gut, but I ignored it because, well, I loved her and thought maybe I was just being cheap or something. Then her friend Tiffany, who I never liked, by the way, got engaged to this hedge fund bro who makes like stupid money. Suddenly, Amber's Instagram feed was full of Tiffany's new beachfront condo and her designer shopping spree that her fiancé paid for. I could literally see Amber getting more obsessed with these expensive houses after every brunch with Tiffany. I overheard them on the phone once, and Tiffany was saying like, "Girl, if he really loves you, he'll buy you whatever you want. That's what real men do." And Amber was eating it up like it was gospel. But I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be that guy who talks about his fiancé's friends. We had been saving for a down payment, and I had put away a pretty decent chunk from my last few bonuses. I'm good with money, always have been. My parents taught me to save early and invest smart. Amber, on the other hand, was all about that treat-yourself lifestyle. Designer clothes, $200 haircuts, $80 candles that smell exactly like the $10 ones at Target. But whatever, I figured we balanced each other out. I was the saver, she was the fun one. That's when she started with these tests, at least that's what I realized they were later. She'd say things like, "I wonder if we should get a bigger engagement ring. Tiffany's is 3 carats, just to see what I'd say." Or she'd mention some $500 spa day and say, a good boyfriend would just book it for me as a surprise. It was like she was constantly checking to see if I'd jump through hoops to prove I was man enough to keep her. She'd say stuff like, I could have dated anyone, you know, when we'd fight about money, like I should be grateful she chose me and my wallet. She started acting like she was this rare prize, and I needed to prove I deserved her by spending more and more. One night, we were on the couch scrolling through more house listings, and she showed me this ridiculous mansion that was literally double our agreed max budget. I laughed and said, yeah right, maybe when I IPO my own startup. And that's when she looked at me dead serious and said, well, why not? Don't you think I'm worth it? That was the first moment I felt like something was really off. Like, worth bankrupting myself for? Who thinks like that? But then she cuddled up to me and started talking about how amazing our life would be in a house like that, and I pushed the thought away. Looking back, I should have seen it for the huge red flag it was. But you know how it is when you're wearing rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. A couple of weeks passed, and Amber was getting progressively more obsessed with mansions we couldn't afford. One Saturday morning, she wakes me up super early, practically bouncing on the bed, shoving her phone in my face. Babe, look at this house. It just got listed. She's practically screaming with excitement. I'm barely awake, rubbing my eyes, trying to focus on her screen, and I see this ridiculous house that looked like something out of those fake MTV Cribs episodes. Gated community, some pretentious name like the Estates at Whispering Pines or some crap, with vaulted ceilings, a backyard overlooking a small lake, the whole 9 yards. It was in this area where all the local doctors and lawyers live, way outside of what normal people can afford. But the thing that really woke me up? The price tag, $1.2 million. Our budget was $450,000, maybe stretching to $500,000 if it was perfect and didn't need any work. Isn't it amazing? She squealed, already scrolling through more pics. They're doing an open house today. We have to go see it. I sat up in bed and was like, Amber, that's more than double what we agreed we could afford. The monthly payment would be insane. She just rolled her eyes. God, you're always so negative about money. Just come see it with me. Looking isn't buying. Famous last words, right? So like an idiot, I agreed to go to the open house just to make her happy. And honestly, I figured once she saw it in person, she'd realize it was ridiculous for us. We get there, and this place is even more over the top than the pictures. Marble countertops, heated floors, a bathroom bigger than my first apartment, a 3-car garage, we own 1 car between us, LOL. And this fancy wine cellar even though Amber mostly drinks White Claw. All I could think about was how many extra hours I'd need to put in to afford those monthly payments. But Amber was literally dancing through the rooms, already planning where our furniture would go and which room would be her glam space for her makeup videos she was always talking about starting but never did. This walk-in closet is literally my dream. It's bigger than our current bedroom, she kept saying, ignoring the fact that we'd be eating ramen for the next 30 years to pay for it. The realtor, Ryan, could smell desperate money. You know the type, slick hair, fake tan, calling everyone buddy or sweetheart. He kept following us around, pointing out all the luxury features and talking about how this neighborhood was highly desirable and houses here only appreciate in value. When he casually mentioned the price, I thought maybe Amber would finally see reason. Instead, she grabs my arm and goes, we can make it work, right babe? This is exactly what we've been looking for. The realtor, sensing his commission, jumped in with, I can introduce you to a mortgage broker who works miracles with your combined incomes. We might be able to get creative with the financing. Creative with the financing is code for you'll be in debt until you die. By the way, after the tour, I tried to bring her back to reality in the car. I was like, Amber, that place is way above our pay grade. The mortgage alone would be like $7,000 a month. That's more than one of our entire paychecks. She just rolled her eyes, saying, we can totally make it work. You've got that fat savings account from your bonuses, plus you're due for a promotion, right? It's our actual dream home, Jake. The fact that she was already planning to spend my future promotion money that I hadn't even gotten yet was setting off all kinds of alarms in my head. That night, we had our first serious fight about money. We were supposed to go out to dinner with friends but ended up canceling because we couldn't stop arguing. She kept saying we needed a statement property that reflected our status. I shot back that we'd be just as happy in a place that didn't bankrupt us every month. What status? I remember asking her. We're a software dev and a pharma rep, not celebrities. It's about the life we deserve, she said, like we were owed a mansion for some reason. Don't you want people to see how successful we are? I told her I didn't care what people thought of our house. I cared about being able to sleep at night, not worrying about money. She called me small-minded and lacking ambition. The fight lasted for hours. Eventually, she stormed off to take a bath, and I sat on the couch trying to figure out when she turned into this person I didn't recognize. This wasn't the Amber I fell in love with. A few days later, I was grabbing her phone to order food, with her permission, when a text from Tiffany popped up. I know it's wrong to read someone's texts, but the preview showed my name, so I clicked on it. There was a whole conversation about the house we'd seen. Amber, it's perfect, but Jake keeps whining about the price. Tiffany, men never understand investing in quality. Brad bought me this condo, no questions asked. Amber, how do I get Jake to step up? He has the money, but he's so cheap. Tiffany, girl, you need to test him. Brad says men need to prove they can provide. If he won't buy you your dream house, maybe he's not the one. There was more, but I stopped reading, feeling sick to my stomach. So that's what this was about, testing me, seeing if I'd bankrupt myself to prove I was good enough for her. I didn't confront her about the texts, maybe I should have, but I wanted to see how far she'd take this. Later that day, I was venting to my buddy Chris about the situation, and he pointed out something I hadn't considered. Dude, has she actually talked about how she's going to contribute to buying this place, or is it all on you? I realized she hadn't mentioned her part in this at all. It was all your savings and your stock options and your promotion, nothing about what she would bring to the table financially. When I brought this up to her, she looked genuinely confused. But you make more than me, she said, which was true but not by that much. And anyway, I'll be decorating the whole place. Do you know how much work that is? Like picking out throw pillows is the same as coming up with a $250,000 down payment. I found out later from her coworker, who became a good friend after all this, that Amber had been talking about this house to everyone at her job, already planning a huge housewarming party, telling people she was going to have a proper entertaining space finally. She was acting like the house was already ours, already planning how she'd show it off to make others jealous. The whole thing just felt gross. It wasn't about finding a home for us, it was about her having a status symbol she could brag about, and I was just the wallet that would make it happen. A few days after that house drama fight, things were tense between us for a few days. Amber was doing that passive-aggressive thing where she'd sigh really loud whenever we scrolled past that mansion on Zillow, or she'd make comments like, I guess some people just don't dream big, while watching HGTV. Real subtle, right? I was trying to be mature about it, showing her more reasonable houses in our actual price range, but she'd find something wrong with all of them. The kitchen's too small, the master doesn't have a sitting area, the neighborhood isn't prestigious enough. It was never ending. Then one night, we're eating takeout on the couch, and completely out of nowhere, she drops this absolute nuclear bomb on me. So I've been thinking about the financing for the lake house, she says casually, like she's talking about what movie to watch next. What lake house? I ask, mouth full of pad thai. You know, our dream house by the lake, she says, rolling her eyes like I'm being deliberately stupid. I've been running the numbers, and I think I've figured out how to make it work. I'm instantly suspicious but also kind of curious what financial gymnastics she's come up with. Oh yeah? How's that? She takes a sip of her drink, all casual like, and says, well, if we put the house solely in my name, we might qualify for first-time home buyer benefits. Plus, we could structure the taxes better. I literally froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. Wait, what? Why would the house only be in your name if we're both paying for it? She gives me this look like I'm being difficult on purpose. Because as the future lady of the house, my name should be the only one on the title. It's traditional. Traditional? What century is she living in? I've never heard of this tradition in my entire life. That makes zero sense, I tell her, especially since I'd be paying most of the down payment. If anything, it should be in both our names since we're getting married. That's when she gets all defensive, saying it's a symbolic gesture of trust. I'm sitting there thinking I'm in the Twilight Zone or something. She wants me to fork over my life savings, take on a massive mortgage, but have zero legal ownership of the property? What person in their right mind would agree to that? The conversation just got worse from there. I kept asking why she needed the house in just her name, trying to understand her logic. Was she worried about my credit? Did she think I had debt I wasn't telling her about? Was this some weird tax thing her dad, who works as an accountant, told her about? But every time I asked for a straight answer, she'd dodge with some vague like, I just want to feel secure, or I need to know it's truly mine. None of it made any actual sense. For the next week, things were tense between us. She wouldn't drop it, always circling back to, I want it in my name, and that's non-negotiable. It was like talking to a brick wall. Then I found out who was really behind this whole scheme. Her dad, Richard. Holy crap, this guy. I should have seen it coming. Richard has always been weird about money and control. He's this old school accountant who still uses a physical ledger to track his expenses and thinks credit cards are the devil's wallet or something. He's always been weirdly controlling about Amber's finances, still making her forward him her bank statements every month to review even though she's 31 freaking years old. Who does that? Anyway, Amber had dinner with her parents that weekend. I couldn't go because of a work thing, thank God, and when she came back, she was even more determined about the house in her name thing. She let it slip that her dad had spent the whole dinner lecturing her about how she needed to protect herself financially and that putting the house in her name was standard practice for smart women. I found this out because she literally said, "Dad says all intelligent women put assets in their own names, even when married." "Oh, so your dad is behind this?" I asked, things suddenly making more sense. She got super defensive. "Dad's just looking out for me. He knows about these things. He's an accountant." "Yeah, an accountant who files taxes for a local car dealership, not exactly a financial guru." But in Amber's eyes, her dad knew everything about money. I tried to reason with her. "Amber, what your dad is suggesting isn't normal. Married couples typically own property together. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine, right? That's kind of the whole point of marriage." She crossed her arms and got that stubborn look. "That's old-fashioned thinking. Dad says modern women need to be independent." "There's a difference between being independent and straight-up scamming your fiancé," I pointed out, which didn't go over well. That night, she called her dad and put him on speaker, I guess thinking he would convince me. Richard started talking to me like I was a complete idiot who didn't understand basic finance. "Listen, Jake," he said in that condescending tone that made me want to throw my phone out the window, "this is a simple asset protection strategy. If the house is in Amber's name, then it's shielded from any potential business liabilities you might incur as a software developer." "What business liabilities? I'm an employee, not a contractor. I don't even have my own business." This made zero sense. "Also," he continued, "in the unlikely event that you two separate, this provides Amber with security. AKA, in case you divorce, my daughter gets to keep the $1 million house you paid for." I tried to explain that I understood asset protection, but what they were proposing was completely one-sided. Why not a prenup that protected both of us? Why not both names on the deed with a legal agreement about what happens if we split? Richard just talked over me. "Jake, if you truly respect my daughter, you'll want her to be secure. A man who can't provide that security isn't the right man for her." And there it was, another test of whether I was man enough for Amber. If I didn't agree to financially screw myself, I wasn't worthy of her. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a house. This was about control. Her and her dad were testing me to see how much I'd let them take advantage of me. If I gave in on this, what would be next? Joint bank accounts that only she could withdraw from? Life insurance policies with her as the sole beneficiary? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how messed up it was. I'd always been generous with Amber, buying her nice gifts, taking her on trips, never complaining when she wanted expensive dinners or concerts. But I did those things because I wanted to, not because she or her dad manipulated me into them. This felt different. This felt predatory, like they saw me as nothing but a wallet with legs. I needed some outside perspective, so I called my brother, who's always been straight with me. I explained the whole situation, half expecting him to tell me I was overreacting. Instead, he was like, "Dude, what the actual heck? They want you to buy a house you can't afford and put it in her name only? Run. Run fast and run far." Hearing someone else say it out loud made me realize how completely insane their demand was. No reasonable person would ever agree to this. Amber must have sensed I was pulling back because that night, she went full rom-com mode, got all dressed up, cooked my favorite dinner, the first time she touched a pan in months, and acted like everything was perfect. After we ate, she curled up next to me on the couch like nothing had happened. "I've been thinking," she said super sweet, like this wasn't about to blow up again. "Maybe we could put the house in both our names, but with a condition." I paused. "What condition?" "If we ever split up, the house automatically goes to me. We can write it up legally." I just stared at her. "Wait, what? That's literally the same as putting it in your name only. You're still trying to guarantee you walk away with everything." She pouted like I was being the difficult one. "You're making this so hard." "I'm just trying to find a compromise." "No," I said, trying to stay calm. "A compromise is we both own it, and if something happens, we split it like normal people, either sell it or one of us buys the other out. That's how this works. What you're suggesting is just you getting a free house if we ever break up." She pulled back a little, clearly annoyed I wasn't falling for it. "You act like I'm trying to screw you over. Why can't you just trust me?" "Because every single version of this ends with me paying and you owning," I said. "You keep calling it trust, but none of this is mutual." She rolled her eyes. "God, so obsessed with ownership. It's like you don't trust me at all." "No, it's about not being an idiot," I snapped. "What if we split?" She shrugged like it was nothing. Obviously I'd keep the house. Dad says that's fair. There it was, crystal clear. This whole thing wasn't about starting a life together. It was about her and her dad locking in a house using my money while making sure I walked away with nothing. So let me get this straight, I said. You want me to put down the money, make the payments, take on all the debt, and then if things go south, I just leave with a thank you card? You should want to protect me, she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Dad thinks you're not the man we thought you were. That was it. That was the line that snapped something in me. I've always been happy to spoil the people I love, but when I choose to, not when I'm being emotionally blackmailed by someone's controlling accountant. Dad, your dad doesn't get to run our relationship, I said. And if you think he should, maybe we shouldn't be engaged. Her eyes flared. Tiffany was right. If you really want to be my man, you do anything to make me happy. I just looked at her. Yeah, well, if being your husband means signing over my entire future, then no thanks. She stared at me like she couldn't believe I actually said it out loud. Then she stood up, knocked a picture off the wall on her way out, and slammed the door so hard the floor vibrated. Honestly, couldn't have staged a better ending myself. After that blow-up fight, we didn't speak for 2 whole days. I crashed at my buddy Chris's place because I couldn't stand being in our apartment with all that tension. My head was a mess. Part of me still loved her, but another part was screaming, "Run, dude, run," on repeat. On day 3, she called with this fake sugary voice like nothing happened. "Babe, can we please talk? I miss you. Let's meet for coffee and work this out." Against my better judgment, and Chris explicitly telling me, "Don't do it," I agreed to meet at Starbucks. I figured we'd either find middle ground or end things for good. When Amber walked in, she was all done up, perfect makeup, hair styled, wearing the tight dress she knew I loved. Classic Amber strategy when she wanted something, try to cloud my judgment with her hotness. "Jake," she squealed like we were long-lost friends and not a couple in crisis mode. She tried to kiss me, but I turned my head so she got my cheek instead. Her smile faltered briefly. "I ordered your favorite," she said, sliding a caramel macchiato toward me. I didn't touch it. I needed a clear head. "Look, I think we both said things we didn't mean," she started, which was bull because I meant every word. "I've been stressed about the wedding and house hunting, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry." Notice how she apologized for her tone but not her actual insane demands. "Anyway," she continued when I didn't immediately accept her non-apology, "I think I've come up with a solution that will make us both happy." She pulled out a fancy leather folder and placed it on the table. "Dad's friend Michael, he's a real estate attorney, helped me draft this up. It's a fair compromise." My stomach dropped. I opened it and started reading what was obviously a legal document. As I skimmed through the legal jargon, I felt physically sick. This wasn't a compromise, it was worse than her original demand. The gist was, 1. I'd be solely responsible for mortgage payments, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. 2. The house title would be 100% in her name only. 3. If we divorced, I'd have zero claim to the property or any equity. 4. Any improvements I paid for would be considered unconditional gifts to her. 5. I'd be required to list the house as my primary residence for tax purposes. It was like a rental agreement, except I'd be paying for the entire house and getting nothing in return. "Are you serious with this?" I asked. "This isn't a compromise. This is even more one-sided than what you originally proposed." She rolled her eyes. "Did you actually read it? It protects both of us." "How exactly does this protect me?" I flipped through the pages. "Show me one clause that gives me any protection." She leaned forward, speaking slowly like I was stupid. "You get to live in a beautiful home that would otherwise be out of our reach. Your credit score will improve from making mortgage payments. And you get me as your wife. That's your benefit." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want me to take all the financial risk while you get all the benefit? What kind of partnership is that?" She sipped her coffee like this was a normal conversation. "Every relationship involves give and take. You get me as your wife, and I get the security of a home that's mine. Dad says it's more than fair." I just slid the folder back across the table. "You're right about one thing, the wedding is off. But I'm the one calling it off, not you." The look of shock on her face was almost comical. Her mouth literally dropped open. Clearly, she'd expected me to cave. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. "Are you seriously dumping me over a house?" I kept my voice steady. "I'm ending our engagement because you've shown me that money and property matter more to you than partnership or love. This isn't a marriage, Amber. It's a financial trap designed by you and your dad." She looked panicked. "You're making a huge mistake," she hissed. "Do you have any idea how many guys would kill to be with me?" "Then go find one of them," I said, standing up. "Preferably one with a bigger bank account, since that seems to be your main criteria for a husband." As I turned to leave, she called after me, "You're going to regret this." No one walks away from me. My dad was right, you're not man enough for me anyway. I just walked out, feeling like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The wedding was off, and somehow I had to pick up the pieces and move forward. The first few days after the Starbucks showdown were a blur of damage control. Calling my parents to tell them the wedding was off went surprisingly well once they understood the situation. My mom actually said, "Thank God you found out now." My friends were even more supportive. Most had seen the red flags with Amber long before I did. My buddy Mike actually said, "Finally, dude," when I told him. Meanwhile, Amber was on her own damage control mission but with a very different message. She was telling everyone that I dumped her because I was too cheap to provide a proper home for her. She'd completely flipped the narrative, painting herself as the victim of my alleged financial cruelty. He refused to put the house in my name even though I just wanted security, she told our friends, conveniently leaving out the part where I'd be paying for everything. I wasn't going to stoop to her level, but I also wasn't going to let her trash my reputation. When people ask me directly what happened, I'd just say, Amber wanted me to finance $1 million house that would be legally 100% hers even if we divorced. I didn't think that was fair. She disagrees. That simple statement was usually enough to make people question her version of events. Richard, Amber's dad, took things to another level. This dude actually called my boss to say I was emotionally unstable and shouldn't be trusted with important projects. Luckily, my boss told him it was inappropriate to discuss personal matters in a professional context, then gave me a heads up about the call. Moving out of our shared apartment was another hurdle. I coordinated with Amber to go when she wouldn't be around and brought friends to help me move quickly. The place was a mess when I got there. Amber had gone through my things, and some of my stuff was missing. The most disturbing thing was finding that leather folder on the kitchen table, open to the contract she'd wanted me to sign, with a sticky note that just said, "Your loss." It felt like a weird threat, so I took a photo for documentation. As we were loading the last of my stuff, Amber's car pulled into the parking lot. "Great, so much for avoiding an awkward encounter. Didn't expect to see you here," I said. "I thought we agreed I'd be out by 3. She ignored that. "Jake, can we please talk alone?" She glanced at my friends. "Anything you need to say, you can say in front of my friends," I replied. She crossed her arms. "Fine. I think you're making a huge mistake. We had a good thing going, and you're throwing it away over a stupid misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding. You were very clear about what you wanted, me to finance your free house." "It's not a free house," she snapped. "It would have been our home that I just wanted in my name for security." "Security from what? What were you so afraid of?" "Women often end up with nothing after divorce," she said. "That's statistically untrue," I pointed out. "And your solution wasn't fair to me. You were trying to protect yourself by putting me at risk." The conversation went downhill from there. She started crying, then got angry when that didn't work, then tried to guilt me about wasting 2 years of her life. In the weeks that followed, Amber kept switching between trying to get me back and trying to make my life hell. She'd send sweet texts one day and tell mutual friends I was abusive the next. Her dad even threatened legal action for breach of promise, which isn't even a thing anymore in our state. 6 weeks after everything went down, that dream house she and her dad were scheming to get went back on the market when she couldn't buy it herself. Turns out her pharmaceutical sales job wasn't enough to qualify for that massive mortgage without my income. Looking back, all the red flags were there from the beginning. Her entitlement, her dad's unhealthy involvement, her obsession with status and money. I just didn't want to see them because I was blinded by what I thought was love. These days, I'm doing much better. I bought a reasonable condo that I actually can afford, started dating someone new who values partnership over possessions, and learned a valuable lesson about what really matters in a relationship. Sometimes the most expensive mistake is the one you don't make.